darkness falls across the town, where a new buyer must be found. All bushwhackers crawl in search of blood, got terrorized by the A62 Hood. And whosoever buys the town without the means for going down must stand and face the League One hell, where we last rot under Ken Davy's spell. The foulest stench was in the air, the funk of Wadsworth lingers there. Grizzly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal our doom. But town fought hard to stay alive, with every kick, tackle or foul that no mere mortal can resist. The evil of the towel.
And good evening and welcome to the pod on Haunted Hill, where we have some Rajiv Vanla paranormal activities going on this evening. Hosted by myself, Matt, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have with me the monster of Frankenstein, Richard Kosmala. Unfortunately getting his teeth into a takeaway, and not with us this week is the Vampos, but he can stay in the intro due to his late withdrawal again. And our special guest, third time lucky, it's Danny Kirrane, Kirrane. Recorded live in front of you lovely Hellraisers. So if you thought the intro was great or poor, let us know in the comments. But it's been a tough week, hasn't it, lads? What a day. Huddersfield Town 1, Millwall 0. Let's get the sponsors, our lovely sponsors, Magic Rock. Let's do that first. So this episode again is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Magic Rock continue to sponsor this podcast, which we're very thankful for. If you guys want some fantastic beers online, get to magicrockbrewing.com. Use our code of AHTTC10 and you'll get 10% off just from knowing us. Fantastic, eh? Kosi, Danny, how are we doing?
Very well.
Buzzing, mate. Buzzing.
Good.
We're happy.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's get cracking. Huddersfield Town 1, Millwall 0. Very much, very much needed was this. In his presses, Mike Fotheringham, it's been noticeable lately that he's altered from talking about trying to get as many attacking players on the pitch previously. He's gone from sort of saying, guys, I need to get all my attacking players on the field, to now talking specifically about clean sheets, hasn't he? It looks like the penny's dropped to me that we're not particularly affluent going forward, shall we say. So he's now looking at the defence, which once again has come up trumps with a clean sheet, and people sort of go on about how he doesn't like to talk about systems, formations, etc. And he talks mostly about spaces. I thought Town looked fantastically compact in the shape that they were in. It seemed to alter, didn't it, from a 4-2-3-1 and wrap around a little bit. And Ben Jackson was doing the whole flank. I thought it was good. The performance was probably the best of the season, would we say? A really decent performance. A lot of reasons to be happy, Kosi, in this particular one.
Yeah, it felt very sweet, to be honest, walking out the stadium yesterday, because I think for me, when you go to a game, and to be fair, it works both ways. Sometimes when you win and you haven't deserved it, it can be a sweeter feeling there. But I just felt that there was a lot of pressure on us coming into the game. And again, our championship just makes you kind of look a bit of a mug sometimes, because like they were 4 wins in a row, and you think, yeah, they're playing with full of confidence. But that's what I love about our division. It doesn't. You walk in there and you think who's bottom and who's kind of pushing for playoffs and stuff as well. But yeah, I felt we really deserved it, and there was so much to admire from a lot of players, which obviously we'll dissect later on as well. But I think it's a really nice feeling when you walk out there knowing we've got what we deserved. And classic Town, you knew we wouldn't get that second goal to make it comfortable. But even if we did, we'd probably let one back straight back in. We don't do stuff easy, do we? But I just felt it was interesting last week, Matt, when we were on about Middlesbrough. I remember you, because I were a bit, why are we time wasting? We should be going for it, etc. But I think it's kind of validated what you were saying, really there, mate, that this feels even better that we're backed up again, like on a clean sheet. So it's almost like, we need to start winning away. We know that, but it justifies kind of the ending last week, which you were kind of trying to explain to me when I was saying, well, we need to win, etc. So, yeah, really good performance. Very comfortable, really. Surprisingly comfortable, because you really thought, surely they should have a bit more to come. And even at half time, you think, surely Millwall's going to give you a bit more problems than that, but they really didn't. And, some good individual performances. And the pressure were on there. And obviously the fathers, who we're kind of calling him now, in the press conference, I think on Thursday, wasn't it, where he was, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. He kept mentioning that quite a bit, and so we knew that. But yeah, it reminded me of Carlos stuff last year, Matt.
Yeah.
Just really solid, not very spectacular. We're not the fastest team ever. You won't be rushing to pay 25 quid to watch that every week. But you know what, mate? You were all about the result, and the best thing about the result is we deserved it.
I've got some comments that I'm echoing a little bit online, so I've just made a slight microphone alteration now. So let me know, Tom, Gary, Bez, if this is a little bit better. I'm sure it is, because I added the microphone twice just to double up on it. So I've removed one of them, so hopefully that's much better now. I'll wait for the comments. Danny, welcome back to the pod. It feels like only a couple of weeks ago you were last with us. Whatever happened to that episode, eh? So this game itself, it's really, Town have come out of the blocks much happier. We're all much happier this week. We're now sort of starting to look upwards, aren't we? Rather than sort of wallow in a pit of self-pity. Can't say pit twice, can you? But this now feels like we're moving in the right direction, and Yuta Nakayama's settling in as well, and he's got the goal itself, the main talking point. It seems to be the main talking point across social media. Did Yuta Nakayama mean it? Kosi, you keep changing your mind on this, don't you? And Danny, I don't think you've quite offered an opinion yet. I know the answer to this. Danny, I know the answer. Yeah,
I thought it was a cross when I saw, because I watched it on iFollow yesterday. I couldn't get to the ground, and I thought it was a cross. But then I watched the highlights again, and he sort of, after he kicks it, he's looking at the goal. I don't know. I keep changing my mind like Kosi now, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Kosi,
yeah.
What do you reckon, mate?
What do you think?
What have you settled on?
You know what? I was trying to play amateur psychologist here and look at Nakayama's celebration, because I'm thinking things that don't probably mean up anyway. Because I'm thinking if he's meant that, he's like, but he's not that kind of guy. I don't think he's going to like scorch on the touchline and take off his shirt or on his, do a knee slide and stuff. But he looked a bit kind of shocked, didn't he? Like, oh my God, he didn't run about. It almost felt like he was a bit of a fluke at the time. But honestly, you look at his eyes, and that, honestly, I think it would have go. I think he meant it, Matt. Obviously, it would have go on it, but that's been a long day. But it just kind of, there weren't many options kind of in the box, and he kind of just stopped a little bit before he did it. And I think he did it, mate. I think he meant it.
Well, do you want putting out of your misery for this one? Sorry, I'm just readjusting this.
Why has there been an interview? Have you seen an interview with him, man?
There's an interview with him and Sorba after the game, and Yuta Nakayama is incredibly grounded. He seems like a lovely human being, and he was very gracious and magnanimous, and he said he didn't mean it. It was a fluke. So there we go. There we go. He said he was trying to cross the ball. So, but he also said you've got to take it, and we've not had any luck really this year, have we? So for one to go in, hopefully our luck's changing now, and we're moving in the right direction. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about players that impressed us particularly. So we're all going to take one each, wax lyrical about them, aren't we? And then set them on the way. So we've all picked one player. The player I wanted to pick out is Mikael Helic. For me, this was the sort of game that Mikael Helic lives for. I thought the shape that we operated in, that sort of 4-2-3-1 hybrid 3-4-3 thing that he had going on, I thought, when Mark Fotheringham talks about the spaces between players, I think in games like against Millwall, what's really important is to squeeze that number 10 space in front of the back four, which is where David Kasumu and Etienne Kamara were superb in front of Helic and Tom Lees. Tom Lees was excellent as well, by the way. But what this allows Mikael Helic to do is it allows him to be the magnet for the ball. When Millwall can't play through you, they've got to go long. And every time Millwall went diagonally, there was a big Polish strapping centre-back there, heading everything away. And we're looking at the stats. He's got 6 clearances. He's won 8 aerial duels, 1 big block, 1 interception. Especially in the sort of last 10, 15 minutes Millwall had to go long. They were looking at Benicophobia and another number of players that they were throwing up there. They're throwing the centre backs up there, and every time Mikael Helic header, and he's just about getting match fit now. I think people forget that he's missed a lot. Missed pre-season. He'd been injured since April. Not really been fit or not been available really till he'd signed for us, and he's been. He was a rock, I thought, yesterday, a real rock at the back, and I think you've got to give Mikael Helic huge credit, and I think that's what we paid the money for these kind of games. But this was right up his street, this game. Head it, kick it, fight, and that's what you want in it, guys, from your centre-back. You want them to do that, and you want them to fight, and Mikael Helic was 100% up for the scrap yesterday, and I was really impressed with his contribution. I know Tom Lees isn't one that you two are talking about, but Tom Lees was fantastic next to him as well. He's got 8 clearances as well, and Mark Fotheringham, I think, has noticed that the platform to build on is not sticking all the forwards on, as I mentioned, and it's the strength of the back four and all of them. You got to give Ben Jackson a lot of credit as well. He's he's 2-footed, but he's pretty much a left-sided player, and he's gone from playing that roll down the flank, and he's been moved across to right back, and he's contributed as well with 6 clearances. So Mikael Helic for me, absolutely fantastic. Danny, who's your guy that you've picked?
I've got Kusumu because I just think, and not just yesterday, but yesterday especially, his energy, his hustle and bustle. Also, yesterday's passing had improved, so I think he had the highest pass completion rate out of anybody. But stats aside, I think he's got that. He's got a bit of fire in his belly that I think we need sometimes, especially when I've said this before, like when we miss Hogg and people like that. That energy he's got, he can run through brick walls. And he gets stuck in, and we all like that as Town fans. So I really, really rate him. And I think if we can keep him fit, because I know he's had injuries a lot in the past, and he got injured when he first came. If we keep him fit and he don't get suspended because he does like to play on the edge, I think he'll be really important this season because he just has that. There's a bit of a nasty streak in him, it seems, in a good way. He wants to win every single ball and get on the ball, and he's fearless in that way. So I think he's a great signing, actually. I think if we can keep him fit, he's going to be really good for us. Great player.
It's the second balls, isn't it, Danny? That's what. Yeah. It's his speed. I think one of Lewis O'Brien's great strengths was his speed across 5 yards, and it's so important in football, isn't it, just to win that ball? And he's got a similar sort of trait as well, where he's so quick, isn't he? So when Mikael Helic and Tom Lees are winning those headers, he's first there. He's so quick, isn't he, to everything, and he's moving it on. And he was a player I was really sort of excited about when we signed him, and I'm really delighted that he's now started to fulfil his potential. And someone else, Kosi, that we're hoping that could fill some potential. Fill us in on your guy.
Yeah, I like Chatridge on his performance yesterday, and it really weird. Looking on them SofaScore marks, I think got one of the lowest performance, but I'd describe it as a very mature performance, Matt, because I think the thing with our team is we're slow, and he's quick. So it's like he's got the ball. He's not going to have many options in front of him to pass to, and that as well as be Ward or Rhodes, maybe Sorba might be coming up, but that's about it. And I think what I liked about yesterday was slowing stuff down. He was playing the ball when it needed to be played, and that as well. I just saw a guy there to me who's really kind of coming on, and he can improve so much. He's intrigued me, this guy, because obviously he got 10 goals last season for AFC Wimbledon. He's obviously taken a step up into a struggling team. We've just changed his manager. And another thing you've got to remember, Matt, as a young guy as well, I know it might not be, kind of a thing for many, but he's moving from London to Yorkshire, and that's a big thing, that. As we saw with Chris Powell, it don't work for everyone, mate, does it, staying in Yorkshire 7 days a week? So, yeah, I'm really impressed with him, and I'm excited about him, mate, because I just think he can do, I just think he could be, a lot more, obviously, goals to his game and things like that. But I did like the way he just kind of, when we needed to kind of keep the ball, Millwall had a lot more of the ball in the second half than us, but just when we got it, he didn't waste it. And smart player, and he's only going to get better, mate, I think. And enjoyed watching him play. I think his brother must have retweeted my tweet saying he was good, so at least someone.
That's
looks
why
good,
you've
man.
picked him, isn't it? Just for the glory of the retweet. Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought Jack Redoni was noticeably quicker, stronger, a lot more incisive than we've been, and I think it makes a difference that he's not playing 6, he's not playing 8, he's not playing on the wing. He was playing behind the striker, which is the position that he's apparently his favourite, and he was back in his favourite role, and it's going to take a decent player to take that off him, isn't it now, Cos? So it's his shirt.
Yeah, another
Take it off him.
Another thing, Matt, as well, not just Redoni, but looking forward, which, again, the trouble is when you win a game, everything just feels so much better, and maybe you do get a bit carried away with stuff, and God, if Sunderland do us on Wednesday again, it's like back to whatever. But the one thing that I thought is that we've had a week to prepare for the game, and obviously Fotheringham was big and nearly on his training, in case anyone's not noticed, but yeah, and he would kind of say you could just see what a week more on the training ground's done, with us. And part of me thinks, obviously, probably going to lose Sorba and Nakayama to the World Cup, but he's going to have a good month on the training ground with these guys and stronger, faster, smarter, different formations. I think it's really going to benefit us. And obviously, there's some big games to come up between now and then, but if we can kind of get a few more wins, get maybe out of that relegation zone, then all of a sudden we're into the World Cup period, and he's got his group to work with and that as well. I don't know. I just feel a lot more optimistic now, mate. But again, it could be just clouded that we've won a game and played well. But you can definitely see, obviously taking his word for it, but we can see the evidence on the pitch last 2 weeks that the stuff we're working on in training is coming off.
Yeah.
Do you know what's really impressive? What's really good as well is I'm looking at the comments on YouTube, and I'll read some of them out actually because there's some quite good ones that are coming in. Apart from the ones where I've got the echo. Bez5678 says, "I'm usually like a cat on a hot tin roof, only 1 goal up, but yesterday I was calm. They were never scoring. Shows there's bugger all between the top and the bottom of this division." I think that's a good comment as well because he's very right. Kosi, you've talked as well, haven't you, about Hull winning 4 games or 3 or 4 games in a row, and then they shot up, didn't they? Up the table. We've seen Coventry are now starting to rise, although they lost, didn't they, at the weekend. Burnley have gone on a big run.
Yeah.
Norwich have dropped off. And it's very right.
I know it pissed us off. Yeah, I know it pissed us off a lot, Matt, last year. We were getting people, I can't believe Huddersfield are up there, because we were winning. But let's be brutally honest, cold, and I maybe a bit of a hypocrite here because I went on the offensive a few times on this pod saying, how dare they say that about us? We've got 70 points, 60 points, whatever we had at the time. But we were good to get obviously 80 points, but you did look at us and think, wow, what a team this is. So why should we think anything different for the other teams? You've only got to look at what's happening at the top. I know Norwich season card holder at work, and mate, when they've had a bad little trot now, but I think they won yesterday that beat Stoke. But before that, they were rubbish, mate. They were like saying we're the top of the league. We're absolute pants. There's dissent against Dean Smith and other stuff. So yeah, it's just like, again, maybe with the other kind of thinking, Sunderland have won 1 in 8 on a bit of a bad trot on Wednesday, but that doesn't mean, part of me licking my lips thinking, yes, great time to play them, but then Millwall probably thought it's a good time to play us and stuff. So, but exactly, I think that's the beauty about it. You're writing games off and you never fade in everything, and that's what we want to see. We don't want to see like Premier League today, like although everyone probably do that Forest battered Arsenal, but you knew what was going to happen there. You didn't need to watch that game today. You knew what was going to happen when you switched your telling at 4 o'clock. There were going to be plenty of goals for Arsenal and not for Forest. But I love our unpredictable division. It's not great quality. We've got to say that. But it's good, man. And when you don't know
I love the Championship for that reason because you really, now and again, you'll get a Fulham who just sort of run away with it. But most of the time, it is everyone could beat everyone on the day. And that's the best bit about it. You don't know what Sunderland are going to be like Wednesday. In a way, it's probably a more dangerous game than Millwall was because it might be harder for us to sort of guess how they're going to play. Whereas Millwall, you know what you're going to get. And it's sort of easier to set up against, I would imagine. But yeah, Sunderland, I mean, it'd be lovely to win again. To do 2 on the bounce. We haven't done that this season, have we?
Nope.
No. So I think it'll be, I think it would make, it should lift everyone's confidence if we could do that.
Yeah, Alex Pritchard, bring your earplugs, baby. Alex Pritchard, are you watching? Bring your earplugs.
Bring your fishing rod as well, you little shithouse gnome. He's going to score now. I've said that, hasn't he?
Yeah, nice.
He's a cracking player. Superb, Alex Pritchard. But no, he's he was a bit of a disappointment, wasn't he, for us? We have to say. I don't think it was ever through lack of effort. It just never happened, did it?
It didn't work, did it? No, it didn't work.
A really bizarre one. But
yeah, but you know what
there.
though, Matt? I know what the guy was saying there about we didn't feel comfortable, but typical Town. There was that moment, and I think it was Mason Bennett again. Shoot me if I'm wrong, but they had that one opportunity where they came out. The keeper Nichols had to kind of not come totally out. He had to kind of stop, otherwise he'd have wiped him out and give away a penalty. And he just went round him, and luckily we're kind of off balance, and he hit the kind of the weakest shot. I think Tom Lees might have cleared off it. I could be getting all these names wrong, to be honest here, and I just thought at that moment, if that goes in, that would have ripped the heart of us so bad. That could have done so much mental damage, because we deserved to win and they had nothing. And for them to get like a late equaliser like that, luckily it would have put powder puff for 10. But it's just fine lines when you're building confidence, Matt. It's almost like recovering from a big operation, haven't you? We've had we've been under surgery for so much of this season that we're getting stronger. We're getting we're walking about now off as hospital beds and what have you. And that would have done a lot of damage. And I think so. It was brilliant that we kind of got away with that, but that's all they had. I can't remember anything else. Sorba should have buried that header really, but
yes.
Foot of the pot. I think we're more of a bad miss more than a kind of a unlucky kind of.
Gary Wilkinson says very compact. Finally, we've got our team back, and we've got Bez says Yuta has said he was trying to cross to Ward, which he was. Yeah, and Leo says Helic was class, deserved his place in the Championship Team of the Week. And Bez says he thought Kamara was awesome yesterday. And I think that was the point I was going to come to, is you can always tell it's been a pretty decent performance when a lot of people are picking different players and different Man of the Match awards. Yeah. And that's always a really good sign, isn't it, that your team's had a good performance. So that's particularly good. One incident which seemed to cause much kerfuffle, Mr. Kosmala. I know you'd had a skinful down there, but there was there's just one. Oof. Wasn't there? There was just a little bit of a bit of an issue whereby somebody stole one of these bad boys, didn't they? The ball boy. He was the pantomime hero, wasn't he, for us?
What I remember going back quite a lot of years. God, it was Blackburn Liverpool game, wasn't it? I don't think the Premier League got a cup game or something like that, but there was a big issue, wasn't there, about it then? But what are the rules if an away team want to put the towels on? Whose were the first thing is whose were the towels? Whose were they? Millwall's, I'm assuming.
I know, mate.
Yeah, I don't.
But you know what? Wasn't it a weird? The guy who was doing the throwing, wasn't it such a weird thing that he did, because he didn't just like kind of do a Ben Jackson kind of just like come back off the advertisement and throw it. He kind of came in from an angle, wasn't it? Really weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He kind of went. I don't know how to do it, but
Oggy was saying it on the commentary on iFollow. They were laughing, Oggy and Matt Glennon, exactly about that. Because they were on about time wasted, Millwall, but he was taking longer to dry the ball than Nichols was holding on to it at times. So they were laughing on iFollow, the Radio Leeds lot. But yeah, I mean, it was I don't know, it sort of brought the fans together though a little bit. You could hear it on the commentary that everybody was sort of having a good shout at him. I don't know, it brought all three sides of the ground together. It felt like
man of the match. Who are we going man of the match then? I think we have to give it the ball boy, don't we?
Yeah.
He brought everybody. It did something that a lot of managers haven't been able to do, have they? Brought everybody together with one stroke of genius with a towel. Fair play, that man. Oh, that boy.
I thought ref was a bit shit, Matt, and he didn't really that situation. I mean, he didn't really take control of that situation as well. And then I don't know if you remember the second half, we had an amazing break where someone, I think it might have been Sorb, and he brought it back.
Oh, yeah. That was shocking. That was appalling, that. Ridiculous. An appalling decision. Yeah, he dived and Sorb would have been in, yeah. I was frothing a little bit at that. It's amazing, isn't it? If we hadn't won that game, I'd have been marking his cards, that referee. He'd have been there alongside Jeremy Simpson, but I don't even know his name because we won, so that's probably a good sign as well. But a couple of things...
like Matt, them refs that... I know you watch so many refs. I know it's going to sound weird, like where they dish the cards out, but he was one of those guys that he were pissing him out and he walked over and then then the player walked back and then he got his card out. Mate, just fucking get the card out and book him. So, because I was watching it for ages thinking, is he booking him here or not? And you get loads of these refs like that. yeah, sometimes you had like extravagant, like clean straight away it with a yellow, but you were thinking, I was watching half of this stuff thinking, is he booking him here? Is he just going to talk to him? Because you have to wait for ages. And he would almost like, look at me and garbage he was, mate. Poor ref. Him.
I might have to have a look at who it was, actually. Yeah, so on the way out, Kosi, it got a little bit hairy, didn't it? I did a little video for the preview show, which Danny was very kind to lend his voice for, and we did a couple of accents, didn't we? We had more fun, didn't we, doing the accents to each other, didn't we, Danny, on WhatsApp than we did actually doing the video. But, you know, you were walking out, weren't you? And you heard a couple of, come on, you Huddersfield slags, didn't you? And, you know, it got a little bit hairy, didn't it, up the old A62, and you don't tend to see a lot of that.
It wasn't good, mate. I had to get to in at 80 minutes past 5. So as usual, you're thinking, please kick off at second half at 4 o'clock and please like have +3. But no, we kick off at 4:08 and then we have 8 minutes stoppage time. So I'm up against it, obviously, with my rotund figure trying to get to the train station. But obviously, Millwall fans had enough, so they weren't waiting around to watch our celebration. So they went out and there was some tasty kind of guys, but it got it's always a bit of a dodgy kind of bit now because they've cordoned off some of the roads kind of as you come out of past the old gas club and turn left as though as you go towards town, and then they were doing their so I thought, here we go, and then I was kind of stuck in this big bubble of them and that as well. Luckily I didn't have any colours on, but it really weird. They walked past the big block of flats up the top, and all these people come out of these flats are almost like they were waiting for him and that as well. Like, I don't know what to feel, I don't have a clue the what, but like, come on then. So there were people launched up out of these flats, and it was quite not really amusing because shouldn't be laughing and stuff like this. But I was just thinking, what are they going to do here? Because they're not coming down from these flats. So what are they going to do? Just like burst through and like, mate, I've watched your security code so I can get up and like have a fight. But it was just weird. And yeah, as you walked up on that as well, it was dark, and because obviously it's getting darker early, and it wasn't great. But it's I'm afraid if you're letting fans out at the same time, you're always going to kind of get that as well. But it were if you had young kids and stuff like that as well, you wouldn't have been very comfortable with it. But it really weird because I was running. I thought, I've got to get this train system. It looked like I was running away from them. But I suppose technically I was, but luckily I managed to get my train, and all well good, and we won. But Millwall had lost. They weren't happy, and they were looking for some fun. So.
It's a shame, isn't it, Danny? Because Millwall's one of those clubs which had a bad reputation in the 80s. But I speak to one or two of the guys. I'm in a championship chat group with other sort of podcast presenters and stuff. And the Millwall guys are great. You know, they're really, really decent, down to earth chaps and what have you, and quite kind and what have you. It's just a shame, isn't it? Because they've worked really hard, haven't they, to rebuild the image of the club. You know, they've tried to bring families in and stuff. And it's always a shame, isn't it, when a couple of small, a short number of individuals cause the reputation of the club to bring it down.
My partner's uncle is a Millwall fan, and he's great and stuff, and he says, again, like with everybody, it's just a minority, but they've got such a, I don't know, I think they've probably just got a slightly bigger minority than a lot of others, but there's lots of great Millwall fans, but there's just, and it's like when they've come up from London, they've been drinking all day, and then they've lost. And I think they probably thought they were going to win as well, which never helps. I think they probably thought they were going to beat us. So that, I don't know, that probably added to it. And I don't know, there was that big thing. Do you remember what happened in Waterloo that time after that playoff set?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
There's a bit of history there, isn't there, as well, I suppose. So I don't know if that's got out to do with it, but yeah.
I thought our fans were great yesterday. I thought they got behind the team. And I've said to you, Matt, earlier on that it's really weird when I think of some of the times where, I don't know when, obviously, with James McLean recently, but like other stuff where a referee's not right good, or there's a bit of, I remember that, obviously, that Palace one all the way, and Alan Lee tunnel job. And our fans are weird, right? Because some of the other stands kind of don't really get involved until they feel there's some unjust. So I think it was really good in a way what happened with the towel and the ball was and the steward, good job and all that, because it gets everyone involved, and it kind of pushed everyone over the line when the team kind of needed it, I thought, in the last 10, 15 minutes. So, yeah, I think kudos to the fans, because obviously, I know kind of Pos and the Council put out kind of one or two posts, which I think were right, saying, look, we might not all agree on this, that, and the other, but we know that if we unite and we get behind the team, that it's going to be so important, especially these home games. And, part of me read that and thought, yeah, it's all right putting it. And I know we were winning, and that does help because, we're kind of got something to hold on, and but no, I've just thought fair play to everyone yesterday. It was a good effort, and I was proud of the team, the fans. It was a good night, but when you're having your beer on a night, you're just thinking, this is quality, mate. I feel good here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it. Huddersfield Town 1, Millwall 0. So we'll move on from the game. Great win, and we might maybe do a Twitter Spaces thing on Wednesday night if we don't get hammered. That's usually the rule in it, because if we don't get hammered, we might jump on Twitter when we get home.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that guy. After you guys, one of the which game was it when you come in? Oh, I'm stuck in traffic. Oh no, I'm going to bed. Pause and I ended up doing it on my own.
Yeah.
But
I was buying comfort food in the McDonald's drive-through, and you were like going, Matt, where are you? And I'm just like, I'll be home soon, mate. I sat there, 6 chicken nuggets, please. I need a milkshake first.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we might be back, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so this week we heard the news that Dean Hoyle doesn't feel like he can run the club at full tilt anymore like he did before his illness. For me, you've got to respect a bloke who's quite happy to park his ego. He's putting his money in, but he's quite happy to put his ego and that to one side. And he's brought Dave Baldwin in to run the club. I'm sure from all of us at the podcast, Danny, Kosi, and everyone else that's not on it tonight would wish Dean the very best in his health. But maybe it's the correct call. If he can, one thing Dean always used to say is, you've got to be at it. When you're running a football club like Huddersfield, you've got to be at it. And if he feels that he can't be at it, to use his phrase, then maybe it is the time for him to walk away. But to his credit, he's secured funding, for however long it takes. So he'll continue to fund the club until a buyer comes along. So I've seen a couple of people go, "Oh no, Dean's going out. If we can't sell it quickly, there's going to be administration." There isn't. Dean Hoyle's promised that he will fund the club until a sale. So anybody that's worried about that, don't be. The current owner will not allow that to happen. And we do say current owner. We mean that in the sense that he has got 25%, but he's also got 75% authority over Phil's share. So it's a very complicated structure at the minute. He's got power of attorney. Power of attorney. I'm going He-Man there, aren't I? Power of attorney. I have the power. But he's got but he's got power of attorney, I should say, over Phil's share. So Dean is technically the man with all the keys, if you like. So what we've had is, we'll talk about Dean. I always think you should, with regards to owners, you should always try and keep them on their toes. But Dean, he's done quite a lot for the local community as well as the club. The club's had a decade in the top two tiers. The longest we've been in the top two tiers for 50 years. I think that's enough to show that his tenure has been a success. And providing his exit is clean and fair, then I don't think Dean will ever really need to buy many drinks in Huddersfield if he ever fancies a night out again. But let's move on to Dave Baldwin. So Baldwin at Huddersfield used to be when our man Richard Kosmala found a pub serving Madri on draft on an away trip. But that is no longer the case. The phrase has got a whole new meaning now. Or Estrella, I can't remember, Kosi, whichever one it was that you found at an away game and you were absolutely buzzing that time. For those that haven't seen, he's got a pretty good track record at both Bradford and Burnley. He was voted CEO of the year in the AFL at one point. He did an interview on YouTube, which you can see on Huddersfield's main YouTube channel. Stephen Chicken's obviously done a story as well. He got to interview Dave Baldwin, so always make sure to check them both out. So a little bit about why he's here. He was brought in to assist with the club share from Phil to Dean. He talks about how that's a lengthy process and the FCA approval of the transfer, and that effectively means that you have to submit a 3-year business plan. What we do know is that Phil signed everything over to Dean in May, pretty much at the playoff final. And Dave says it takes 3 months minimum with the FCA, and that the AFL are still asking questions about the plan and the funding. So that's still on target to be completed. What it means in regards to Dave Baldwin coming in for a new, trying to find a new owner. He describes himself as the gatekeeper. So he will be the one making the decision on the new owner or the next owner. He'll field the inquiries. He's got to, he'll deal with the brokers who act on behalf of potential buyers, any that come in directly. He mentions he's got links with Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and he's got a lot of consultancy experience in mergers and acquisitions, which is which is quite interesting. He also says he won't specifically rule in a type or a DNA of a person, because that could mean that certain people don't want to apply. But I don't know about you, Danny, but when I watched the interview, despite him being a Bradford fan, we can just park that to one side for a minute. I actually felt like the club was in a good place, and I felt like Huddersfield Town was in a better place than I thought it was a week ago. With Dave as the CEO, he's got great experience at both Bradford and Burnley, and he seems like a really good fit for Huddersfield Town as well.
Yeah, he seemed switched on and intelligent, and he was honest. And obviously, when he was saying about the stuff that he's been involved with, he's like sort of perfect for the role at the moment, and that he'll give us that certainty at the moment, which is exactly what we need, especially in the position we're in. I think he came across really well, and like you said, I don't know. I think he could be really helpful, really, because even though he's not probably going to get involved much with on the field stuff, obviously, it just feels like when you've got a safe pair of hands in there, I think it does bleed down into the day-to-day of the football club as well. So I think he seemed great in that interview, and all the stuff he was saying about he's helped other people acquire other football clubs and stuff like that. I think it's really good, and I think Dean, Dean's been amazing, but also I think one thing that Dean most of the time gets right is who he picks to help him do these things. So he's had great people in before Dean, and I think this guy's a really clever sort of acquisition, and I think he'll really do well.
Go on, Kosi, you're always a backer of Bald, aren't you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, just kind of what you said really in that as well. I think for me, kind of unpacking it, because obviously the interview didn't come straight away, but the day after, maybe 2 days after, and what have you. My first thoughts were, shit, Dean's going, there's not a lot happening, kind of taking over. You're thinking, what's going to happen in January? There's not going to be much funding, you wouldn't have thought, and all of a sudden, for a guy that we've pretty much known, obviously fill in between, but it's like anything, and it's like, oh my God, it's like the uncertainty of life is always one of the weirdest things when you go back to COVID and none of us knew what was going to happen and what we could do and this, that, and the other. It used to be horrible, didn't it? And I kind of had that weird feeling, but yeah, just what you were saying there, Danny and Matt, before the interview, where it came across really, really well. I think felt like we've got a bit of a coup, to be honest, Matt.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
you can't argue, like you say, with CEO of the year, and I loved his energy. I love the fact he mentioned, didn't he, that he misses that when he went in charge, kind of the EFL. He missed the, on the Saturday. I could really associate with that, like as a fan. Yeah, that, we've won or we've lost or whatever. How it is, and yeah, that was really, really good. And I liked what he kind of said about January and the fact that there's obviously discussions already about what we've got to play with and what we need and stuff. So he just felt a football man, to be honest, Matt. And Burnley, you can't argue what he did there, mate. And the fact that, and I do like the fact as well, I know, God, let's hope we don't go down then to them level with Bradford, because administration and the struggle there, not. So he's kind of gone from one extreme to the other, hasn't he, really, where like a League Two, struggling, free transfers, etc. And yeah, I think we've comes across as a bit of a coup in that as well. So yeah, but yeah, I chatted to Richard Sutcliffe about him because he likes Burnley and obviously Bradford and that as well. He said he thought his interview was really good at that as well, and yeah, he says he's a really good operator. So said so it'll be he's a stand-up guy. So this is a guy who I think Huddersfield people need a stand-up guy that, like Sutty was saying, that we don't. I think there's this Dean that's come back, and obviously his health and that as well is a different Dean to the one that we saw in the first spell, canal side Q&As and stuff like that as well. Because it's ironic, Matt. We were only chatting last week about this Q&A that did it. I don't even know if it's happened. Was it meant to be last week or whatever? But the mystery behind it and how it kind of came about. Yeah, no, it was good. It just felt we're kind of heading in the right direction with this guy, but he's got so much work to do because, like, say, if Dean wanting to kind of step down, this guy's got to find a kind of buyer. And for me, I said to you, you were really weird, wasn't it? I think Brady put something in our group, didn't it, saying, if a Saudi kind of businessman had come up in like Newcastle, etc., how would you feel about it? And kind of pause. I think we were saying this is. I don't think a lot of fans would give a shit because like we'd have the money rolling in and we'd do well, etc. But for me, I just think it's total opposite. Everyone's different, but for me, no matter what I do, whether I work or my friends and stuff, values are massive for me. Values are massive for me. Like people who are honest, people who got the heart and I know football's a murky industry, isn't it? With some people talk a good game and then you see, oh, they've moved these shares here and then the left, and they leave clubs in the shit, and you thought, bloody hell, hang on, this guy, I thought, we're kind of good for this club. We'd be so lucky, I think, kind of with Dean and even for Phil, even though some people might not agree with that. But I think, it just felt, come away from that, felt, certainly the interview, a bit of a coup. And honestly, I think this is kind of a guy who will, well, like sort of say, he'll front up and, the Burnley people speak highly of him and that as well. I've spoken to a few Bradford people who really like him, and it's and then the win on Saturday. It just felt a good few days, mate. I think.
Yeah. So he's mentioned. Let me have a look. So I've made some notes here. He mentions he won't specifically rule a type of person in or out, which we mentioned, but he talks. They were very careful about mentioning the assets as well, because I think reading between the lines there, they didn't want Town fans to feel like the waters were being muddied, and they wanted to be honest and upfront. And so I think they're trying to head off questions that Town fans might ask. So Town fans are obviously going to say, well, what happens with Canalside? Who owns it? What's the structure there? What happens with the stadium? What happens with the share, etc. And all this. And he mentions that in terms of assets, the new owner will come in. The idea behind it, whether I've got this wrong, seems to be that the new owner will come in and purchase the club, which includes Canalside. He mentions that the football club are looking to become the lead tenant of the stadium, with KSDL effectively the ones that are running the stadium now will go away. So Huddersfield will run it. The Giants will be a subtenant, and it will be down to Huddersfield Town to organise things that go on around the stadium. There are, and I think one of the stumbling blocks about this is that there's a lot of work needs doing at the stadium. It's how old is it now? It's 28 years old, is it?
Yeah.
So it needs.
Didn't they say £8 million? I'm sure that a quarter could be wrong.
I think there's
£8 million worth.
I've heard that it's between 8 and 12 mil of heavy plant machinery work, which I don't really know exactly what that is, but it's a lot. And I believe Kirklees were going to loan Huddersfield Town the money to cover that, an interest-free loan, and they would pay it back through running the stadium, etc. What Dave Baldwin, so he mentions 3 outcomes specifically at the end. Outcome 1, stay up, which is obviously important to needing to sell the club on, because a Championship club's a lot more inviting than a League One club. Outcome 2, to be able to get the stadium to be in control of Huddersfield Town, and then they can maximise revenue, minimise exposure costs, and then outcome 3 is to find the right custodian to take the club forward. But from what we've seen as well is that he mentions FCA approval, etc., and EFL, the owners and directors test. That's not a quick process. You can't just pop out like you can to Morrison's, hand your card over. There we go. That's mine. I'm taking this home. It doesn't work like that. You've got to set out, a complete business plan of what's going on. It takes months for it to go through, and then you set your 3-year plan out, etc. Rolling 3-year plan, and so it's not going to be quick. So they do mention January, the transfer window, and that Huddersfield Town might be able to refresh a few things. So Dean will obviously have to front that financially. And I think the interesting bit as well, guys, is the stadium. I've always thought the stadium's not really utilised to its... that's another podcast name, isn't it, with Nakayama there, utilised. But I don't think it's ever used fully for its full potential. So, we did an interview for the 100 years since the FA Cup with HTSA. So I went down to the stadium and met the guys that were recording it. And we went into the boardroom, and I think what struck me was we walked into the stadium and there's nobody there. Literally, there might be a groundsman doing bits and bats. There's someone on reception. But when you walk in, it's dead. The ticket office I don't think was open at the time. And you're walking around the stadium. We walked up, didn't see anybody, into the boardroom. The boardroom was laid out so we could use it. And then we walked through into the Heritage Suite. I actually saw Earl Crabtree. Earl Crabtree was pinning posters up in the White Rose Club. I thought that were amazing. Big Earl's like doing all the posters rather than someone who works at the club. Well, he does work at the club, but he's doing all the work for the Giants, and that was it really. I saw Earl. We walked around out into the where the away fans sit, took some pictures, walked back in and out through the exit, and that was it. I only saw Earl Crabtree and the receptionist in the whole stadium, and it just feels like it's so underutilized. And we didn't have a concert, did we, from about 2005 to when, who was it who came? There was Little Mix and Girls Aloud came about 10 years later. So it just feels like KSDL haven't really used it to its full potential. And I do think there's a lot that they can do there. And match days, Kosi, for example, if Huddersfield Town were to create like a supporters bar in or around the ground, would people go to it? Would they, would you sort of go, oh shit, it's raining or it's cold afterwards? Would you then sort of file out of the away end and then maybe go into a supporters bar if it was on premise or in one of the stands? There's a lot that people can do. Yeah, the Brighton do that. Walsall have a brilliant supporters club, don't they? At the side, when you go into Walsall, they've got a really sort of cracking Phoenix Knights kind of set up there, haven't they? And you go in and it's really good. But there's all sorts that you feel that they can do.
Because I do. Obviously, we were chatting with Phil before, and I think he had these ideas of these supporters bars and this, that, and the other. And then obviously there's cinema there, so there's people kind of coming like Monday to Friday. But you've seen stuff closed down even around there. Wasn't the hotel meant to be built? HD1. So it's kind of, you think, there's a lot more that could be done in that as well. But I think the interesting thing for me is like what did quite a bit of damage for me, Matt, with some of my friends was the let me get this right, the bar, what's it called, Legends bar, I don't know what it is, but basically when we went to a lot of people use this bar, it's just next to the swimming pool, wasn't it, in the promotion season and a couple of seasons before that. I know a lot of people did that, and then they binned them for, I think they might be using it for corporate or something, but basically all you had to have a membership. Someone will know better than me, but I know a few people like, hang on a minute. So they're like, well, bollocks to it. We're going to stay in town and stuff. So, but I do think if you could kind of build something like that, I mean, you've seen that obviously the Canal Side fan park that got big in the Premier League. Then we went and did the thing. I always thought it was a bit of a low budget affair. Obviously they had to do something, but back at the South Stand car park where the golf range used to be and that as well. So it's it's interesting. I mean, I always smile that. I mean, Scarborough, where I spent so much time, the open air theatre there, when they didn't have many like big names, and they signed a deal with, I think that's Sheffield Arena kind of company as well, and obviously they've had some amazing. God, I'm going to sound really old turns and stuff, but no, like Britney Spears, did she came like 2 years ago? Yeah. So I think things like that. It depends how much you kind of. I mean, because there's massive competition for like stadium gigs now and that, Matt. There's so many places, since the Leeds Arena's come, that's kind of, made it even harder, I think, kind of for West Yorkshire kind of places to go. But I think it just boils down to how much do we want to do something. But when you don't own like the most of it and that as well, and obviously you think, well, why should you bother in that as well? And it always used to get on my nerves, the fact that, when you hear them figures 8 to 12 million, you're thinking, why are we having to foot the bill? There's other people involved with it as well. What are KSDL doing? And I remember putting out a tweet, like eating out about KSDL, and someone, he must work for me, were like coming back, we're like, well, what out your funding? What, how are we supposed to do all this when your funding's been cut? So I kind of got the impression that this guy must know people or works there, and he were like, so yeah, maybe bigger picture, mate. It would be good if it believes Dave Baldwin kind of hinted it were pretty near, didn't it? I thought so. It's going to be sooner rather than later. But I do think that when you think about King and getting the shares back, Matt, back in the day, God, we're talking a lot of years ago now. I remember Dean saying, "Oh, would it even fill again?" That it hadn't been the big, great benefit that we all thought. When we got the kind of the shares back and stuff, and we hadn't got the stuff out of it. So it's it'd be interesting how they're going to make it work. But in principle, mate, it sounds a good thing, and I don't 100%. I'd back it and support if we had a pre-match like supporters bar. We could watch games, and I don't know, it's the kind of a sports bar during the week. I'd swing around there, mate. Hopefully others would as well.
Interesting, isn't it? So just having a quick look online. I did ask the question what people thought. Bez says, I'd like another guy like Dean. Don't want one of these consortiums. They seem so impersonal, and that's not really us at all. And with regards to the stadium, he says you don't utilise something you won't get the financial benefit from. Town don't get enough of the benefits to make it worthwhile. I think that's probably a good point, actually, because the split at the minute is 40-40-20, isn't it? And you would kind of think, well, if Huddersfield Town are taking on 100% of the debt for the new stuff, the new repairs and whatnot, and then anything Huddersfield do would take, or Huddersfield Town would take 40% profit back. You would kind of think, well, that's a little bit imbalanced, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I tell you something that'd make a real difference for our stadium, and I saw it when I went to Spain the other week. So I went to watch Villarreal were playing in a place called Levantes, which is the second stadium in Valencia, but they've had a massive stadium refurb done, and they had an absolutely huge big screen, mate, which compared to before, it made all the difference, man. It got the crowd interacting. It had replays on it. It were a real focal point in the stadium. And I look around our little Tim Potty thing and that as well. I just think if you had a real big screen, I don't know, something bolted onto the top of maybe the north stand or something like that as well, you'd get the advertisers and stuff like that. I really think you could make it work and stuff. You could have. Can you imagine having the penalties, the kind of the dizzy penalties and stuff? Something like that. But I remember when because you remember the scoreboard's changed. It's quite old, that other one now, isn't it? But before we had another one, I was just he used to point to corner one. Do you remember that computer graphic? It looked like some
Rocket Ronnie Jepson one.
Catchphrase, didn't
it? Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Just what that tweeter just said there. So the guy who's just messaged in on the comments. It's why would you want to spend big money on that kind of a speculative when you're not getting the benefits out of it? But just something that I saw on this day, I thought, wow, I know the stadium, a nice roof, and they've done some stuff outside, but ultimately, I just thought, bloody hell, the noise were loud, everything and stuff, it were really, really good, and I just think that's just an example there where we could do better, really.
Yeah. It's the ground as well, isn't it, Danny? So there's HD1 is never going to get done, is it? Let's be honest.
No,
it's H done, isn't it? Not HD1, it's H done. It's just, it needs private investment, and nobody's privately investing in Huddersfield, as sad as it is. But it does feel like that temporarily they could do things, couldn't they, around the back? And I know they tried to put a fan zone around the back, didn't they, Kosi? And I remember seeing the pictures, and it looked like there were comments from, I think it were Leeds fans saying it looked like Chernobyl, didn't they? And it sort of it had puddles everywhere, and kids sat at benches next to big puddles and all sorts. And the street food thing's all right at the front and stuff, but it's not massive, is it? And I don't think it quite fully entices you to spend more time there. And I do think the thing they do with the kids, where they've changed the shop. One of the what do you call them? We used to call them terrapins at school, but it's almost like a shed, isn't it? A porta cabin. And they've changed that into a room where the kids go and they play table football and FIFA and stuff like that's really good. And then they have the lining up for power shots outside the Riverside stand and stuff like that's really good. It's just I don't feel they're very well known or whip these things up. And I think probably if they did whip these things up online, people would sort of snark back at them, wouldn't they, quite a lot, because as such as social media is. But I do think it's underutilized. Like I say, the stadium. I don't know exactly what they can do. And there's a culture thing, isn't there, with Huddersfield fans, where it's cultural to turn up 10 minutes before kickoff. I do it. I'm not going to slag anyone off for it. I do this. I turn up 5 minutes before kickoff and I go home after kickoff. I don't hang around. And it's just habit. It's nothing personal. It's just what we do. And as soon as you're walking out of your seat back down, they're closed. They're pulling the shutters down. Everything. It's kicking out time, and it doesn't feel like somewhere where you're allowed or you want to stay around, because you're pretty much getting kicked down the stairs, aren't you, on the way out?
I suppose because the clubs never felt that they fully have carte blanche to do what they want at the stadium. It's never felt joined up, the thinking around it. It's always felt a little bit like when Phil put that blue carpet in. It feels like bits of stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's all part of one idea to get it buzzing down there. So even though they've got stuff, you go, if you're going to go it, you might as well go that extra level. Do you know what I mean? And I know these things cost money, but you do end up making that money back if you could create an atmosphere that puts another 1,000 on ticket sales every week. But I think they try, but it just doesn't feel like it's joined up. And then there's all that down by the riverside, down by the main stand. But then there's nothing in the other bits of the stadium. So if you've got to go all the way there and then walk back round, and I don't know, they need to think about it like in a joined up way, because it just feels sometimes a little bit like sporadic. Oh, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this, but it never feels like it's all one plan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it never feels like they go through with it 100% either. It's like half.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's half-hearted because they're not sure. But I understand that, because this sort of the stadium itself is half-hearted because they don't really own it, do they? So, it's chicken and the egg. I think.
The one thing Matt kind of just went back into today, Baldwin's, kind of video is the one thing that kind of ringing in my ears when I kind of finished watching it is we have to stay up. We have to. It'll be absolute. I know it's an honest thing to say, and I've heard it before. It could be good to have a reset in Division 1, League 1. While asking Switch Charlton fans if they like reset or Sheffield Wednesday, we have to stay up at all costs, mate, to get better than you own and everything like that as well. So anyone who's thinking, and no, should we even think that? Bloody hell, we were in a playoff final last year, but it's like that's the big thing for me, and I just felt, wow, the pressure's really on Matt Fotheringham and his team, and to stay in division, really, bloody hell, we should be expecting more than that. But I just thought it were almost like, did you think? Because he'd gone from his, and I think Fotheringham must have heard this interview as well, because he were like talking, he's going about his playoffs, and I know most of them playoffs were relegation playoffs, well, Matt, but you're almost like he kept saying we have to stay up we've got to stay up, and that it were really interesting. It were like kind of Dave Baldwin's gone in, guys, we have to stay in this division, and I think more than ever now we need to, make sure that we're playing championship football. And I think a little bit worrying on Friday when it's like Birmingham, a team you're expecting to kind of be down
good as well, weren't they? They were good.
Yeah, you're looking around, you're thinking who else? But then Matt, West Brom, I'm not saying that I watched quite a lot of that game. They were awful, mate. They were absolutely dreadful. And then part of you thinks, oh, that's good, because obviously there's other teams as bad as what you think. And Middlesbrough are not. Carrick's got a bit of a reality check, and they lost last minute against Preston, and so it's good that there's others in the SHIT. But we've got to stay up. But more performances like yesterday, mate, and we will.
Yeah. I wonder what they will do. I wonder what they'll do in January, because that Kessler Hayden and Luke Mbete, if they're not going to play, do you reckon? I mean, can they send them back and get some different?
Yeah, I think every season-long loan has a break clause at a certain point where you can send them back if needs be. I mean, King Kessler Hayden looked really promising, didn't he, at first? And maybe there's a role for him at some point. But Luke Mbete looked not long for the championship. It looked like he perhaps needed to start a little bit lower. Without being unkind, he probably needed to start a little bit lower down in the pyramid, didn't he, to work his way up. But you never know, he might come good, who knows.
Wonder what I'll do Wednesday, Matt. We know Thomas and maybe no Turton. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think with the way we play, I think you're probably looking at Conor Mahoney, would you say, for Sorba Thomas, just for the set-piece delivery, if anything. I mean, Conor Mahoney was a punt, wasn't he? That was a punt. When we signed him, but he's got to start delivering to justify the signing. So maybe he's the one. Ben Jackson's done well. Ken Kessler Hayden, perhaps. There's a chance there.
Yeah, I was thinking him. I ain't giving up on
Jones,
him, mate.
I don't know how far he is away. I'm not sure.
And what's up? Do you know what's up with Tino though? Because I missed Tino.
Yeah, glandular fever. So that's really sapping. It's sapping, isn't it? Glandular fever. It can.
Yeah.
I think he's back in training, but I'm not sure at what stage.
Yeah,
he's
someone told me. I went to watch the under-19s on Wednesday. Someone came up to me and says, "We've got no better to do." I thought, bloody hell, there I am trying to support our grassroots, and I'm getting abused by people at Canalside. But yeah, apparently he's been training. The Jonathan Hogg thing interests me though, Matt, and the interview that the boss gave on Thursday, that felt like a guy who was nowhere near coming back to me. I was shocked when Catherine Anna said Jonathan Hogg, and she pushed him on it, and they were like, "Look, we need to get him back," but he didn't. Yeah, it's a bit strange.
It is a strange one, isn't it? Because you worried, aren't you, that with Kasumu's track record for injury and suspension, he could go at any any moment. And then you've got Kamara, who I think is fantastic. You know, a 19-year-old kid, but you can't really expect him to play 40 start. Well, he'd be starting 30 odd games, wouldn't he, from now to the end of the season? It's not realistic. So we need Hoggy back at some point. We need John Russell to pick up as well, and from where he was last season and come back in. And potentially that's an area for January as well. You've got to sort of think, haven't you, and whatnot. But
I'll tell you what's funny, Matt, when you're, when you come into ground, you mentioned that coming to ground earlier on, but Rambo does that thing, doesn't he, where he gives subs first. And I walked into the ground, it's like, Johnny Russell. And then for a minute, because I'd had a drink, I thought, bloody hell, is John Russell starting? And then when he Bill Akovich keep, I thought, oh, actually they're at subs. So I didn't get my notification for team list yesterday. So don't do that to me, man.
That's it, mostly online. I think we're tailing off. So if you guys watching online, if you could be so kind as to click the like button. The reason I ask is because it helps promote the podcast and put it under the Huddersfield Town hashtag. Guys, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ghosts in the background there. Can you see, Kosi, Danny, who those 5 ghosts are? I don't think you'll get 2 of them. And online as well, if you can get those online.
I'm going
to give the answer, so you have to be quick. Can you see them? They're just on the bottom line.
I can see the guy, the one in the middle is Diakavi, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
But I can't quite make the other lot out. Who's that there? He looks like Larry David, that guy there.
Kosi will know that. Kosi loves him. Can you see it, Kosi?
Is that I'm following him, innit? First one, isn't
it?
No.
No following him.
Is it not?
No, they're all ex-players that would be on the Halloween list, if you like.
Right.
So the 2 on the left are from the 90s.
Ben Thornley, isn't it? Is that Ben Thornley and Matt?
No.
Not the
the 2 on the left are from the 90s, Diakabi. And then on the right, the old one. I'm sure you get the old elderly gentleman there. Ex-Conservative, not MP, but ran for Conservatives of Huddersfield against Barry Shearthouse and lost. And then the one on the far right is a difficult one. Anybody? No, not Ben Thornley, Bez. I'm online. Tim Clark is correct. Well done, Leo. So Tim Clark is second from the left. Yeah. It's the ones wide left and wide right you're going to struggle with. Wide right, because it was in my Huddersfield Town worst 11 when we did the Whoppers and Weapons team. He was at right back in my worst ever team, and I went on a rant about his performance away at Tranmere once. The one on the far left is a centre back that Neil Warnock signed in the 90s, and he was absolutely shackpank. He played. I think we got him from Doncaster. No, not White Wells. We got him from Doncaster, and he played centre back, and I think he played in that defeat to Barnet at Leeds Road.
I don't know. You're gonna have to tell us.
There's not many coming in. Can nobody see Ken Davy?
I can now. Yeah, that's yeah.
Ken Davy, bless him, is there. Tim Clark, Adama Diakabi, and the wide boys on the right-hand side is Steve Baker, who we had on loan from Middlesbrough. And honestly, I'll never forget that game away at Tranmere. It's going to set me off again, is that. And then wide on the left, Kosi, I thought you'd have got this. Big strapping centre-back, could barely run. Danny G used to laugh at the way he ran because he ran like a T-Rex with his arms up all like this. Rhymes with Dix. Stuart
Hicks, isn't it?
Stuart Hicks, that's the one.
Yeah.
Big Stuart Hicks.
The Vi leader, man. That beautiful.
Exactly, yeah. Stuart Hicks. Stephen Murray got in there with Ken Davy. So that's it. So the last thing for the pod is I stuck out a nice little tweet asking for Huddersfield Town nightmares for Halloween. So you guys never let me down. Ever, ever, ever. So let's have a look. Let's find here we go. We've got 15 replies. And then you two, I'll give you 2 minutes to think about your own Huddersfield Town nightmares. So the tweet said, we're back recording tonight for our Halloween special, but tell us, what are your favourite worst Huddersfield Town horrors? I almost, Danny, said favourite worst nightmares, but the last time I did an Arctic Monkeys pun, it went down really, really bad, and Brady never lets me forget that. Brady Frost. Martin Shaw says, being 6-0 down at half-time against Barnsley on TV. Pundits sharing the special bookie bets of it reaching double figures by the end. Oh, I remember that. I was so angry. And then
You're waiting for that one.
well, yeah, Delroy scored in front of you, didn't he?
Yeah, we went absolutely berserk. Yeah,
Delroy. Oh, what a stinker that was. Neil Berry, Bez, he's watching online as well. He says, waking up one Sunday morning in 1977, opening the paper to see Huddersfield Town FC, thrice champions, FA Cup winners, sitting 91st in the Football League. It has never been as bad since. So, yes, next time you're whinging about being mid-table in the Championship or whatever, always think back to 1977, if you can remember it. I don't think we can. Kosi might, but me and Danny can.
I can't.
Gabe's M16 says, Danny Williams flashed his privates on live TV as we are 4-1 up in the Premier League is something I doubt we will ever see again.
I remember that.
I don't think any of us have ever felt like a proper man since, have we? Since that moment. Danny Williams. Yeah, that was a cracker, wasn't it? Will Shaw says, taking my Cypriot University housemate to Stockport away on a snowy February night. We lost, and it was bitter. The great benefit was the opera singer guy singing Barry Horn in absolute style. I say this every time that comes up. I started that chant, believe it or not, in the they call it the jungle, don't they? In the Riverside Riverside lower to the right, because I'd heard Man United fans singing it for Andy Cole, and I'd nicked it. And I remember being away at Barnsley, and the guy used to proper belt out the "Oh Barry Horn." It was like almost like one cornetto kind of type thing. It was brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Mark Harrison says, I did attend the Main Road massacre. Honest. All right, Phil. 2-6 loss at Scunthorpe was pretty horrific too. I remember that 6-2. I was at that 6-2 at Scunthorpe and Boothie scoring. And I always remember what a weapon Terry Barwick was that day who played for Scunthorpe. I've never forgotten that. Films Charlie says, we've had a few Dracula goalkeepers over the years with a severe fear of crosses. I almost picked Scott Bevan to go on this calendar, on this little bottom list here, but went with Tim Clark in the end. Alan Bentley says, got to be Man City away in November 1987, 10-1 defeat. We should have been 2-0 up in the first 15 minutes. Then it all went wrong. Trevor Cole says, Bradford away. I can't remember the year, but Jacko was in defence, getting chased all the way from the ground to the interchange. Then the bus was pelted with bottles passing every pub up Bradford Road just because it had Huddersfield written as its destination. That would have been like 93-4, I think. I think we lost 3-0 at Bradford, which wasn't very good. I think that might have been that Warnock season with Hicks and what have you. Michael Eastwood says, that own goal against Stoke, epic. I think that must be Janino Bacuna. Luke says, Peterborough at Old Trafford. You had to go there, Luke, didn't you? You just had to go there. Leo says, Stoke City have to be our Halloween team for own goals, for and against Prudo and Bacuna. Andy Kay says, Macclesfield away, walking from the ground after, and 2 Macclesfield fans saying how shite we were and not being able to argue. Yeah, that's a stinker in it. And then you've got Richard Clow saying, also Macclesfield away. Left my ticket at home behind the clock. Had to pay in. Paid twice for a 4-0 loss. That's painful. That's definitely painful. PJ Toom says, the debut of Kwame Hadutu. No idea what the hell was going on, but we say him for one atrocious half of football and then never again. Phil Senior tells a really funny story about how Kwame Hadutu ran over a squirrel on the way to training and just couldn't get over it and ended up leaving the club. It's absolutely bizarre. Driving into Leeds Road, drove over a squirrel and couldn't get over it and left the country. So there we go. Pip Dunn says, 16th of October 1993. Here we go. Newly promoted Barnet come to Leeds Road on the back of 10 straight defeats and a draw. Town go 1 up early on. We expect the inevitable goal fest. Barnet get a man sent off. Then knock in 2 and take the 3 points back home as their first win in the 3rd tier. I remember that. We had 2 goals disallowed that game. And I remember my uncle, or great uncle, is, I think he's 96. He's in his no, he's not that old. He's born in 1930, so he's 92. I remember him turning round to me, and obviously being 92, he's seen his fair share of teams. He first went in 1936, so that's the first time he started going. And yeah, and he turned around that game and looked at everyone and just went, and just deadpan just went, this is the worst Huddersfield Town team I've ever seen. And so honestly, that has stuck with me. This guy must have seen hundreds of games, home and away since 1930s, and that was the worst team he'd ever seen. And I might have to speak to him again and see if he's had any advance on that team. But that's it. So, Kosi, Have you got a Huddersfield nightmare? I'm sure you can think of many.
Yeah, plenty, mate. I remember one, that's my friend, big Barnsley fan, he said, Friday night game, we were live on Sky. Come on, I will go in anyway. Like, stop at ours, we'll go out, we'll have a big night out around Barnsley after. And half at the way and had gone, mate, when I were meeting him and that as well. Barnsley, it was November 1998, 27th. Barnsley 7, Huddersfield 1. We were absolutely disgraceful. Darren Barnard scored one of the best goals I think I've ever seen live. He blasted it off his left foot. But I just remember sat on this wall, waiting for my friend to come out of that Ponty Road end at Barnsley, and Jesus Christ, I never needed alcohol more in my life than I ever did that night and that as well. But I think, Matt, this is going to be controversial. That band that used to be at North Stand.
Yep. Do you remember when we had George Donis and they used to play the whole Greek plate smashing music?
Mate, well, I support, obviously, the Leeds Rhinos have got a band and that as well, so there's obviously, it divides opinion there, but I just thought, what are we doing with that?
Yeah.
There's probably people listening to that were involved with it, but it would just want me with that.
It all sort of came from that Sheffield Wednesday one, didn't it? The Sheffield Wednesday band, because they were the sort of original. I'm
desperately scratching about, Matt, trying to find this, but I'm certain we were on live. I remember just thinking, Huddersfield Town had in the non-league football, but we played a game against Yeovil. I'm sure it were live on Sky on a Friday night.
League One, yeah. Leon Best absolutely ran us ragged.
Yeah,
I think it was 3-1, I think.
3 or 4. What it 3-1? God, it felt like about 8.
I think it might.
I just remember
it might have been 10th of what it felt like. Yeah.
I remember chatting to me, thinking, what is this? Like Yeovil, and I just thought, God, the people have gone now. I just thought Huddersfield Town could do it older me and end up in National League at that point. Obviously, things changed for the better, but obviously it's a lot worse than what we've mentioned there. But it's just, it could go on. It's really weird, isn't it? You kind of remember some of your worst points more than your best. Yeah. Matt Pudo were mentioned there. Someone stole my thunder that messaged in there because, he was definitely on it. What a guy.
Go on, Danny.
And the fact that he did it again and all, didn't he? What a legend.
Yeah, where he came back with Bradford, yeah. Go on, Danny. What have you got?
Mine is the Peterborough playoff final because I wasn't there. I was working in New York on a play, so I was watching it on my laptop, and I was in this apartment that I was renting, and I was so livid at the third goal. And I'm not normally like this. I picked up a lamp at the side of the bed and threw it, and it smashed, and they charged me $400 for it. Not only did we lose, I lost $400.
Gutted.
It wasn't a great day. That was it, and it was hard watching it on TV and not being there as well. Even though it was rubbish. It was.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're actually at the ground, you can rationalise it better, can't you, than listening?
Yeah, I think so.
It's weird.
Another one, Matt. I remember that Friday night. My Leeds fans ringing me up saying, "God, mate, you'll win tomorrow." Brian McDermott, Chilino's getting chased out.
That was bad.
Chilino's getting chased out of car park by fans. We're in crisis. McDermott shit. I think next, what were it? 5-1.
5-1.
Charity FC turned up, didn't they? We went 1-0 up. Danny Ward scored, didn't he? Went 1-0 up. We were laughing at them, and Ross McCormack, and then he absolutely rinsed us, didn't he?
Oh, it was McCormack. Yeah, it was Ross.
Yeah, that were a bad day. One of mine has to be. I remember being a kid at school and never give it this. Like with other football fans, I never ever give it. When you're talking to your mates and stuff. Oh, Huddersfield Town, this and that. Because this day taught me a valuable lesson. I remember thinking, this Huddersfield Town team is great. We've conceded very few goals over the course of the season. We're going up. I'm going to go to Wembley for the first time in my life. This is a really good side. And I remember going down to Peterborough in 1992 as a young kid, and we getting the 2-2 draw. And I think we all thought it was job done, didn't we? We got the draw away. Although they scored at the end, we thought we got the draw. All we have to do is beat them at home. And we went 1-0 up, didn't we? Chris Billy and Phil Starbuck involved. And then second half was just a disaster. We were better than them by a mile for 3/4 of, or 3 halves, if you like, of football. And then they just ball over the top. And then Bobby Barnes, I think it was it who got in? And then is it Cooper with the diving header? And it's just like, and then I just remember being gobsmacked, and then all the fans were on the field fighting, and the police horses knocking, charging and knocking fans over. It was a horrible scene. I just remember being absolutely mortified by the result, and then the scenes on the pitch. It was horrible. And then went back with my uncle who'd taken us, and like someone had just randomly run up to him, punched him, and he had blood down his face. It was for no reason whatsoever, and it was really, really bad. And to lighten the mood, I think, other than that, the other time is probably when we spent about 9 million quid on this French under-21 player who was tipped as the next Kylian Mbappe. And in his debut at home in a friendly against Lyon, he got the ball outside the box, lined it up on his favourite left foot, tried a power shot. And I can only describe this as like, have you ever played golf? And there's a lob wedge. And when you hit the ball with I'm not a massive golfer, but a lob wedge, and you hit it and it just goes up and down, doesn't it? And I've still got no idea how Adama Diakabi hits the ball, tries to kick it as hard as he can, and the ball just goes up and then down near the corner flag. And I just remember thinking, what the hell have we done? What have we done? And that just set the tone, didn't it, for that horrible Premier League season. And there's so many games during that Premier League season where we just didn't. It was almost like a death march, wasn't it? Walking in every game, and you sort of was like filing in, and it was vile. Let me just have a quick look, see what's going on the YouTube, see if nobody's wading in online, so that's fine. But that's it really for Halloween Nightmares. So everybody enjoy your Halloween. Danny, thanks for coming on. We'll get you back on pretty soon. Sorry, I'm starting to choke here. Kosi, good of you, mate. Thanks for turning up, unlike Pozza, who's just messaged us saying he's had a pizza tonight. So, yeah, I hope you choked on it, Poz, letting us down at the last minute. Massive shithouse. And, yeah, thanks to everybody who's joined us. And I'm sure we'll be back again, hopefully on Wednesday. And if we are back on Wednesday on Twitter Spaces, it means we've got a positive result, because that's the way we work midweek. So, all the best. See you soon.
Darkness falls across the town, where a new buyer must be found. All bushwhackers crawl in search of blood, got terrorized by the A62 Hood. And whosoever buys the town without the means for going down, must stand and face the League One hell, where we last rot under Ken Davy's spell. The foulest stench was in the air, the funk of Wadsworth lingers there. Grizzly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal our doom. But town fought hard to stay alive, with every kick, tackle or foul that no mere mortal can resist. Evil of the towel.
Where's your towel gone? Where's your towel gone? Where's your towel